as I get more and more serious with like the political stuff, I'm having a harder and harder time like engaging with the world that I'm in right now. Like the idea of like listening to like Hassan talk about this shit, and then like after like being there and talking to people and interviewing people, and it's just it feels like so stupid beneath me. That sounds very arrogant, but like it is. Like the online discourse is so shit. It's so dog shit that to go from like that and traveling around the country, spending time in Ramallah and surrounding neighborhoods, going to Hebron, going to Nablus, like all these things, and then like coming back here and talking like, oh well, actually, all of this apartheid. And it's like, okay, yeah, I don't know, Jesus. Yeah, it feels pretty dumb. Did being on the ground shift some of your opinions? Not that much. No, I think especially in my interviews, I think it actually reinforced a lot of what I thought, but it was good to get like a first-hand account of it. There are a couple of takeaways. There are a couple of big takeaways that I got that I think I could have only gotten by being there, though. I don't know if I'll reveal those now or if I'll do that as we go through the footage. I feel like I want to save it for the footage. There's actually a very nice and neat narrative of the trip for me personally. So, do you think you get why Finkelstein was mad because he thought you needed to be there on location to talk about things? No, I don't know how much Finkelstein's even been on location. Supposedly he lived in some part of the West Bank for a little bit. The more and more I learn and study, the more unserious I view somebody like Finkelstein. I think if somebody cited him for anything ever, I think it's a huge red flag to just ignore everything they have to say about. He's a very unserious person. Did you expect the blowback from the tweet about the West Bank settlers? Yes. Remember, a lot of what I tweet and a lot of my public communication is like adjusting expectations and making sure that the audience is aware of where I stand on things. So it was important when I went over it to kind of put, because I know that I'm getting a lot of Israeli fans who are like, oh, you're so cool because you've got such a free spirit and an open mind and you're a critical thinker. But you only stand that because I'm like pushing your side of the story. But as soon as I start critiquing Israel, some of you guys will get mad as fuck. So yeah, fuck that. So I have to. It's important. Those tweets are important. What gets you emotional? Anything about being at the festival, etc. that was intense? I'm just not that kind of a person. I don't know why. I'm just not. I feel bad. There was a lady there that survived the Nova Festival massacre. She was like in the middle in one of these caravans with like her husband on top of her, and like listening to people screaming, getting shot all around, and she was telling her story. And like I'm listening, I'm engaged. I'm considering obviously it's a horrific story. It's miraculous that she survived. But I know afterwards when she started asking me questions, she's like, yeah, I don't know if you even. I couldn't tell if you just didn't believe me because of the expression on your face. So I'm like, well, fuck, what do you want me to do? You want me to fucking cry for you, Jesus? Yeah, but no, her story was pretty harrowing. And then standing anywhere along the Gaza Strip, you can hear the artillery going constantly, especially in Reim. It's loud, like you can hear it going off pretty frequently. It's pretty creepy. What did the white/brown people ratio seem like? My leftist friends think Israel is a large majority white country and never believe me that most Israelis are Mizrahi, let alone that 20% are straight up Palestinian. Yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, like I've read this and I say this. Well, actually, most Jews in Israel are actually from the Middle East, and I'll say that. But when you go there, it's actually pretty like, oh shit, there's a lot of fucking like not traditionally white people here. I guess you don't really feel that when you don't really feel that reading stats and everything online, but that when you go over there, it'd be pretty funny because I feel like most people would assume that like, oh, all the Jews are just like very white. Yeah. Did you talk to any of the evacuated Israelis from the south and north? A lot of them are in hotels. We had plans to, but we ended up having to split one day where Loner Box went north, and I had to go interview the Ahmed TV guy in the Knesset. Because I don't want to miss the opportunity to go to the fucking Knesset. Fuck it. So I went and I interviewed him, and then Loner Box went north. How were the conversations with translators like? Pretty good. Just depended on the translator. The New York Times correspondent guy that took us to the West Bank, that guy was very fucking intense. Holy shit. You ever watch a movie and there's some guy and he's like, whatever you do, kid, don't look at anybody, okay? Just stay near me. And the guy like knows like all the criminal. That's what this guy was like, our tour dude for the 2 days in Jerusalem, in East Jerusalem, and in Ramallah and the surrounding refugee camps. This guy like knew every motherfucker in this. He was crazy. He knew every single person. People would drive by and be like, oh, what's that? And he'd start talking Arabic or whatever. It's like, holy shit. Yeah, that dude was very intense. Very good translator. Yeah, very good I'm super glad I got connected to that guy. I feel like I got a really good tour of like getting into the refugee camps and walking through and everything. Were there any interviews you hated or thought the person being interviewed wasn't being truthful or bad faith? I'll get to that. I'll go through them, I think, as I go through. How was Yishai Fleischer? Yishai was interesting. I appreciated the guy. He was fun. He was like very open to having like an adamant, a loud like back and forth. I appreciated that a lot. Yeah, like I said, I don't think I want to. I think I want to just go through it sequentially on stream. I'll just go through the footage every day a little bit, so that we have the whole cohesive story without spoiling too much. Who was your favorite interview? Shlomo Ben-Ami, and I feel like I'm biased because they were my contacts prior. Shlomo Ben-Ami and Benny Morris were both delightful to talk to. How did you feel after that encounter with that crazy Israeli guy, the one who kept cursing? I don't know. It just felt like a crazy homeless encounter to me. I feel like a lot of people that made a huge deal about that on Twitter are just, they either live in suburbs or they've never seen like crazy homeless people before. I don't know. It's just like, oh, yeah, I thought it was kind of funny. I thought the juxtaposition of him like coming was like, hello, Fred, my friend, with the friend's shirt. And then he starts screaming at us when he sees the camera. I'm like, well, okay, dude. What's I looking at? You're still planning to learn Arabic? Fuck. I need to learn another language. I feel like I have the time to do it. I don't want to get mired down in Israel-Palestine. I can't do that. I have to stop. I can't. I have to stop the Israel-Palestine arc. I feel like knowing Arabic would be an unbelievably helpful thing, though. I feel like if you wanted to study that region and you wanted to learn it really well, I think that learning Arabic would be the best thing you can do. I think it would help a lot for Middle Eastern stuff. But it's a really hard language. It's a hard language to learn. And I feel like I'm better off learning Spanish. If you hadn't thought how you'd do language learning, you could afford a good tutor, and it would probably be worth it. Sustained speaking with someone would be far superior to Duolingo or whatever other app. You could probably scale up rapidly in 6 months. I think for Arabic, I think it would take longer. Arabic is a pretty complicated language. It's completely outside of my wheelhouse. You know what I realized going to the Middle East is I realized that how much Spanish that I knew, okay? I truly don't know that much. I think I could pass Spanish 2 in high school. Maybe. I don't know if you've got to conjugate verbs and other tenses for Spanish too. I think I could pass that, and my vocab's not that great. But like when I listen to Spanish, I could like pick up words. Like, okay, I think I understand what we're talking about. Bro, listening to people talk like in Hebrew and in fucking Arabic, I have absolutely no fucking idea what the fuck is. It's not even close. There is no word that sounds similar. There's not a single fucking verb that I can identify. I have absolutely no fucking idea what's being said. Holy shit, it is weird as fuck. And also, if I wanted to learn Arabic, I don't even need to be conversationally fluent. I'm looking to be like almost above conversation because I'm looking for like political speak too. So it'd be a lot. What was the most sweat-stingy moment besides a dude talking outside your car? I don't think I had any moments where I felt like I was in danger or something. Yeah. How about the meetup? Did you expect a bomber? The meetup was wild. I think I told my dude because he wanted to schedule it at a restaurant. I was like, there's a chance that I could get like 50 to 100 people showing up with the 2 days notice. And I'm pretty sure there were easily over 300 people that showed up for that. When I was walking down and then we turned the corner, we saw the people. I thought there was like a thing. There must have been like an event going on at the beach and maybe like 20 or 30 or 50 of these people were for me. I didn't realize that it was 300 plus people. And I think a bunch had already left because we ended up being an hour late because it took so long to get there. So holy shit. Yeah, that was wild. Did anyone accost that girl that had tattoos with you? I feel like it's wild. She actually went to the West Bank. I'll get through this more when I get through my footage. This is the biggest takeaway that I came away from in the West Bank. I read 2 books while I was down there. One was A Jewish State by Theodor Herzl, and the other was a book called Culture and Conflict in the Middle East. I don't remember the professor's name who wrote that book. Just because it's good. You probably should read, because Herzl, it's like the modern Zionist founder of the country, and then the Culture and Conflict in the Middle East gives you a good perspective on like how do Arabs think in the Middle East. Is interesting, I think. One thing that I noticed when I was down there, I will never in my life, okay, I will never use American Arabs or Muslims as an example of moderate Muslims again, okay? If you look at the history of Jews in the Middle East, it's an amazing history, okay? You've got people that are scattered across the world that have been dispossessed from almost every land, that can only work in finance in like these transitory jobs that they go from place to place because they weren't allowed to be carpenters, they're not allowed to be artisans, they're not allowed to work in the normal population, right? And these people who had been dispossessed from their lands for 2,000 plus years, scattered across the world, all managed to like show and while showing up in this other land, and half of them get fucking killed in the Holocaust, like managed to carve out a country against all odds, to some extent, truly, among a sea of enemies, right? I think I've kind of conveyed that as I've done my research, as we've looked at the history of Israel and everything. A second thing that is really hard to see, however, is I feel like the Palestinian people that live in Israel and in the West Bank, and probably in Gaza, although I didn't go there, are also like a tremendously amazing people. Of all the people in the world that are poised to hate their neighbors, to engage in extremist violence, to do all this shit, Palestinians in Israel have like the best reason ever. You've got Jews and Muslims. You've got a history of violence against both sides. You've got an ongoing like oppressive state. You've got radicalization and other proxy entities that are trying to push you to do things, right? Despite all of these external factors, despite all of these pushes towards that population to be incredibly violent, the fact that 20% of Israel's population are Arab Muslims, essentially, and didn't have like a third intifada on October 7th, or don't engage in like mass violence against their Jewish neighbors, or don't engage in all of this, what you would expect to see like this radical Islamic behavior, I think is an unbelievably, unfathomably amazing thing. I think that Israel's biggest failing, I noticed this as I came back, I started to say this to Israeli people, they need to talk about their Israeli Arabs, their Palestinians that live in the state of Israel way more than they actually do. I always give the ones in the United States as an example, like, oh, look, like Muslims can moderate. And people are like, oh, well, it's the U.S. and they're not blah, 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 blah. I think the best example should be the Muslims that live in Israel and in the West Bank. I think that they're an amazing group of people who have done like really amazing things. Every single Arab household that we went into, like everybody was super polite. Nobody, was second guessing us. Nobody was, giving us weird eyes or being distrustful. Everybody, Jews and Arabs, are like, everybody offers you coffee as soon as you come in. They all got things laid on your table to eat. I don't know. I think both sets of people that live there are super, 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 like against all odds. Like the Palestinians are the second most literate group of the entire Arab world, which is, it's just very. Both people are just super fascinating. Oh, I bring this up because somebody said like, oh, well, when because I took Lena with me, and when she was in the West Bank, you weren't scared about her being in the West Bank. The only time Lena ever had issues with her tattoos or anything was actually when we were in Hebron, and it was from a Jew going into the temple of the patriarchs and the matriarchs, and it was a Jewish woman that came up and was like, she said this or whatever to her. Yeah. What is well, she was like waving her finger at her and like obviously, yeah. Why not release the interviews on their own? Who said I'm not going to release them on their own? It's essentially what you were saying. Sucks about the checkpoints in the West Bank. It's hard to hate people when you're around all day and night. Yeah, I feel like, there are different policy issues that I could see in Israel like that are very clearly not good. But now it feels weird to get so invested in the domestic policy of the country because I'm like, it's not even my country, right? But like, I think killing all the work permits from the West Bank, I think is a huge fucking mistake. I think that Jews that all stopped buying from Palestinian sellers inside Israel proper, I think is a huge fucking mistake. It seems like since 2000, since 2005, since disengagement of the Gaza Strip, it just feels like there's this gradual moving away from Israelis and Palestinians like doing business with each other and integrating with each other and talking to each other. And you've got these cities where sometimes they live side by side. You've got like, we went to the Moose, what are they called? I don't know what it's called in Arabic. The open markets or whatever in Kfar Qasim on Shabbat, and you see Jews that are shopping there because all the Jewish stores are closed and shit. Like the people are so much more integrated than I had originally thought. And people trying to kill all of that integration by fucking with the work permits, because all the work permits from the West Bank are frozen right now, that are trying to like prevent travel. Yeah, I think that's a really, really, really big mistake. I also think that Israel's political system is fucking garbage. Holy shit. I I didn't realize as much about their domestic political scene. I'll talk about this more as we go over things as well. I used to think that Netanyahu was just like super far right, crazy, radical, hateful, never wants peace with the Palestinians, crazy far right. Netanyahu's crazy. No. I think what Netanyahu does well is he speaks well and he's good at building a coalition. And the Israeli political system, the threshold for people to be seated in the Knesset, and the fact that there is no geographical voting at all, it's just one thing for the whole country, and the fact that there are so many fucking parties is so dog shit. It is such a dog shit fucking system. And I feel like the reason why Netanyahu's been able to stay in power is just because he's just exceptionally good at building and holding onto a coalition. But my God, that system, they either need like a second body, like an upper house or a lower house in the parliament. I think something that represents geography would be good. And they need to up the threshold for seating parties because it's just, oh my God, isn't it standard in Europe? Is it? I don't know. Maybe that is standard. Maybe I really just like the US two-party system. I thought when we talk about the Knesset, I thought that Likud was like, Likud is probably like 50 member. It's a 50-member party. And then you've got like 2 or 3 smaller parties that they have to make deals with, to make concessions with sometimes. I didn't realize Likud was like 32 fucking seats or whatever. This is fucking cancer. Oh, it is 32. This is a cancer government. Like, this is actual fucking cancer. Holy shit. What the fuck? Like, your government is comprised of like 8 different fucking parties. Like, what? It's like single member party. This is cringe, I think. I don't know. Yeah, holy shit. You still haven't explained why it's bad? Because the only reason you hear about people like Smotrich or Ben Gvir is because they're from Shash. I think it's this one, right? They have so much power and they have these big minister positions, but it's just because, wait, is he? I thought they were both from this party. Maybe they are. Am I not? Wait, hold on. Not Shash. It might not be that one. The leader of the National Religious Party, Religious Zionism. Is it this one? Oh, okay. Smotrich is here. And Ben Gvir is, somebody said Atzma Yehudit. Probably it's that one. This one? I don't know. I think that system is cancer. But, hey, I could be wrong. What's the biggest difference between the Western diaspora and actual Palestinians? I don't know. I didn't get to talk to too many. We went to some refugee camps. We did talk to a few. One thing that I realized is really hard to generalize. It's really hard to generalize Israelis too, because like so many like different Arabs in Kfar Qasim had different opinions, different Arabs, different Palestinians, and different in like each of the cities had different opinions on things. But a lot of different Israelis had different opinions on things. It's I don't know if I would generalize anybody at this point. I'll probably it'll solidify more in my mind, and I'll have more. There were some general trends that I noticed. I did notice, for instance, that Palestinians, they speak very vaguely when it comes to like figuring shit out, which is interesting. So I think on my interview with Ahmed Tibi, I think I went over this multiple times where I asked him like, hey, okay, so what do you think a final solution should look like for a peace deal? Like, how do you think it should look between Israel and Palestine? And it's always like 2 things: freedom, democracy, or sovereignty and freedom. And it's like you can never actually get a hard answer on anything. I don't know if a single Arab or a single Palestinian gave me a hard answer on any question like that, which I thought was interesting. And it speaks to, I guess, like a different way of viewing agreements or arrangements on both sides, yeah. Was there a kinship from Israeli Arabs with the Palestinians? Yeah, I think Israeli Arabs even consider themselves Israeli Palestinians. I don't think Israeli Arab is very common. Most of them consider themselves Palestinians, and I think they do feel a kinship. Yeah. Israelis did give hard answers, though. Yeah, they did, but I think it's a different mentality between both people. Like I feel like culturally, if you can abstract like the pure elements of their culture. I think that if you if you told a Jewish person, you're living in this house, but somebody wants to come over and take over this land, but we can give you like a better house over here. Like, unironically, it's better than this one. I think that on average, Jewish culture, they'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'll move and I'll go do that. I think that in like the Arab mind, I think on average, I'm speaking averages, somebody comes over and makes that same deal and they're like, no, this is my house. I will sit here and either live in worse conditions, or I will fight and die for this property. This is my land. I think that there is, and I'd already kind of seen this just in like studying and reading before even talking to anybody, that there's kind of like different broad strains of thought culturally between Arabs and between, I guess, Jews. But yeah, it's interesting. Do you think the vagueness in the answers were them hiding their true feelings on a solution? Like I said, I need more concepts to solidify in my mind first. The feeling that I have now, and this is subject to change, the feeling that I have is the reason why they gave vague answers, I don't think it's because they don't want a deal or they don't want to give an answer on anything. I think it's because they're looking for something intangible. Like a feeling that I get is a Palestinian isn't looking for 67 borders, for 100,000 refugees to come back, for 6% compensation. They're looking for like a restoration of honor and integrity. And when you're living under the thumb of somebody else that can control where you can like drive, whatever deal you want to talk about doesn't matter. So when you ask these people largely like, oh, well, what do you think a peace agreement looks like? Right? I think in the mind of like a Jewish person, or in a Westerner in general, you're thinking like, okay, well, cool. Well, give me the percentage of land swaps. Give me the, give me how many refugees you want back. Give me what we do with the holy sites. And I think in their mind, they're thinking like, I need to live a life that allows me to feel honor and integrity for the way that I live. And whatever the arrangement ends up being, that has to be satisfied. Now, there's going to be some underlying physical conditions, material conditions that have to be satisfied for that to happen, right? Like, you're not going to say like, okay, cool, well, we're going to give you all the honor and integrity, but we're taking all the land. Like, that's never going to work, But I think that there are conditions. I think that there are conditions that can be ameliorated that don't have a reason to exist right now that I'm not aware of, that I think would go towards alleviating some of that. Like, one thing would be, like in the West Bank, I don't know why water is made more available to settlements than to Palestinian villages or refugee camps. I've never been presented a good reason for that ever. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know what it would be like to live at the bottom of a valley and then you look up on a hill, because that's where all the settlements are. They're always in strategic positions on hills. And you've got, you notice for every Palestinian house, if you get pictures of Palestinian refugee camps, like if you ever look at any villages or any of these cities, every single one of these houses has these giant black or white barrels on top of it, and it's because they have to store water. I don't know why and it's because they don't always have reliable water coming from Israel. I don't know why you would provide water to the settlements without restriction, but then like selectively give water to people that live out in the West Bank that are Palestinians. It's stupid. It's not good. Like, I think that there are a lot of issues like this that like need to be resolved. There's no good reason for it. There's no excuse for it. And I think all it does is it furthers that humiliation. Yeah. Do you understand more on why Israelis are so regressive on the West Bank? Yeah, I understand it. Yeah, it's just a fear thing, right? But I mean, like, when we're scared, we act irrational. I mean, that happens all the time. But at some point, you would think you learn from history. Maybe, right? Like in the United States, we got scared after 9/11. We blew up the Middle East. I think typically when people are scared, they tend to make poor choices. When you react fearfully, instead of acting proactively and trying to figure out what's the best way forward. Testimonies from Gazan migrant workers before 10/7 are insane. They have very positive views of their Jewish employers. And did you see Shin Bet found no involvement by migrant workers in the attacks? Freedom movement is probably the most important economic reform they could move towards. Yeah, the free movement is really important. And yeah, Shin Bet never did. I think they explicitly said they never found evidence that the people with the work permits were the ones that had given any information to Hamas or anything else. Yeah. Ari Milo in chat says that those tanks are not for water storage, but for water heating the sun. The tanks are used to store, a lot of it is used to store extra water because they don't have water available to them 24/7. They might use some of it as water heating too, but I mean, none of the Israeli houses have any of these tanks. They all have electric water heaters. You can argue that maybe they don't have the money for it in the West Bank, but the average consumption of water for a house in the West Bank on the Palestinian side, I think, is like 1/5 of the average consumption of water on the settler side. Thought those black tanks are more for heating water for showers. I mean, they've got white tanks too. In this picture, it's all black. And some of the pictures I've had, oh wait, these might be newer. They have white tanks as well. It's not just black ones. They also have black ones. Why do you call it the West Bank? Because I think it's probably the best term for that region right now. Do you visit the Golan Heights? The Golanis are Druze Arabs and observe an attitude towards self-determination where they believe they ought to be loyal to whoever protects them. Curious to their mindset. I didn't get a chance to go up there. Loner Box went north. I don't know if he went to the Golan Heights either, though. I don't think he did. Did you ask any questions related to how the Palestinians think of Egypt's position on the conflict after 1973? Yeah, a few. But you got to keep in mind too that like the average person in any country isn't going to like know all of their fucking history, right? That like at this point, like I easily know more history than the average Israeli, the average Palestinian. But that's going to be true of anybody that studies the history of a country, right? Like the average German doesn't know like in detail like all of the history of their country. Or the average American doesn't know fucking anything about anything. Or the average person of a country doesn't know like all the conflicts and all the people and blah blah. They'll know like major talking points or major historical points, and then especially for older people, then you just kind of like move on. Unless you lived it, then you might have a different opinion. But yeah, so it's not, so like going like it would, as much as it might seem like it shouldn't seem like it. Like I can't go up to like a random Palestinian who's like 32 years old and be like, hey, so in 1966, in his speech to the Arab trade unionists, Gamal Abdel Nasser said, this quote, can you tell me how you feel about it? Like nobody, just to be super clear, the best thing you can come up with for Palestinian grievances is they have to wait in line for 1 hour for a completely legitimate security check, and they have to store water in some tanks just to be safe. That's it, right? No. I think it's the fact that the entire territory of the West Bank is like under completely unclear supervision. I think it's the fact that the like geopolitical conflict in the area between Israel and the West Bank and between the PA and Hamas has made it so that holding elections is almost impossible. I believe Israel wouldn't even let Jerusalem vote in the last elections that they wanted to hold in 2021. I think there's a discrepancy between how resources are doled out to Palestinians in the West Bank versus how settlers have resources doled out to them in the West Bank. I still think it's abhorrent, and I think it's even more abhorrent now that expansion of settlements is continuing into a territory whose final status hasn't been resolved. We don't even know what it's going to look like, and it's probably making any future peace agreement even harder to reach a solution on. I think that I don't want to say racism because it's more and it's less than that, but the discrimination or the fear that Jews have in Israel proper and their reluctance to engage in business with Palestinians after October 7th, I think is incredibly detrimental. It makes it so that Palestinians are earning less money. It increases the instability in their neighborhoods. It reduces the integration between both sides. I don't know. Why do you present yourself as pro-Israel when you're more or less pro-Palestine? I'm not pro either side. Fuck both of them. Fuck Israel and fuck Palestine. I'm not here to be pro either side. That's not what I do. I'm not part of that region at all. I'm a fucking white American. Okay, I have no stake in the end of the day. I just I read the history, I say the current events, and I give my opinion on how I think things should be. What's fair, what's not fair. That's it. I'm not pro whatever you want me to be. By calling it West Bank, you are affirming the illegal annexation of Judea and Samaria and supporting Jewish erasure by Arab colonists for the sake of political pragmatism and being coy with liberal progressives. Kinda sickening. Gotcha. Here is one thing I will say. I would say that the most hopeless that I think I felt for the entire conflict was listening to settlers talk. I'm so sorry, Yishai, I love you. And I appreciate all the settlers that let me come into their house and speak with them and were willing to speak with me. But I think that those people are the ones that I felt like were the most intractable, the ones that were the least able to be negotiated with. And I don't even mean like outpost people. I just mean like, fuck, what settlement were we in? Can I look at my pictures? Hold on. Okay, genius, what should it be called and why? He's going to tell you that it should be called Judea and Samaria. That's what he's going to say, because that's what the lands were called when Jews were there 2,000 years ago, and that by calling it the West Bank, you're conceding that it's just a piece of geography that has no proper name and whose final status still needs to be settled. You can tell a lot about a person when they talk about Israel-Palestine. You can tell a lot about them immediately just based on the vernacular they use. Like if they say Arab-Israeli or something, then that means like they're probably going to be a little bit more pro-Zionist. Most of them would consider themselves Palestinian Israelis. Almost all of them would consider themselves Palestinians first as an ethnicity, and then Israeli is is like the country that they belong to. Or when people say West Bank instead of Judea and Samaria, or when people say there was one other big one. Calling it the West Bank is calling it a piece of Jordan. No, it's really not. It just means West Bank of the River Jordan. That's all it means, my dude. Nobody is confused about thinking it belongs to Jordan. After the trip, what should the U.S.'s role be in the conflict? I feel like increasing integration between both sides is important. I feel like internationally, I just feel like nobody should have an opinion about it at all. I think especially coming away from it, it just feels so stupid listening to the international conversations about it. Although it helps the Palestinians to some extent. They feel helped that the international push, like that Israel looks bad in the media right now and that might help them. I don't know if it will or won't, but... Did you personally pay for the trip or does it come into your company's expense? Of course it's a company expense. What the fuck? It's like a $40,000 fucking trip. Jesus. What company? Destiny GG LLC. How'd you spend $40K on 2 weeks? Well, it was international airfare for 4 people. I think I ended up paying around $25,000 in for tour guides, and then for connections to other people, and then for security for 10 days. There was a rental car for 10 days. There's food every day. There's the Airbnb and hotel costs. I'd have to go back and tell you. It was like 30 to 50K. I'm going to guess around 40K probably for everything, yeah. How was Loanerbox? Did you get along? Yeah, he was fine to travel with, I think, yeah. As a tourist, you were only exposed to the small minority of good and de-radicalized Palestinian/Arabs. The overwhelming majority are devout followers of the religion of peace, and you're letting a small minority shape your entire opinion on the entire region. It's beyond retarded. You are beyond retarded. I just want you to know, okay? I don't know where the future of the region goes, but like if the country of Israel dies, it's because of retards like you. Like you are literally the cancer that is killing your country, and I don't even care. I'll just laugh. Like I said, regardless of how things go one way or another, but like the settler mindset or your mindset that like these are people not to be trusted, blah, blah, blah. You are the cancer that is killing. What did I say that is wrong? Well, firstly, you said that I was only exposed to the small minority of good and de-radicalized Palestinians and Arabs. I mean, we were in Ramallah. We went to 2 refugee camps. Unless you think that people living in the camps are de-radicalized and what did I need to go to Jenin? Is there like 1 or 2 cities that I could have gone to that you think are like represent the real fucking Arabs? So you're retarded there on who I actually spoke to. Number 1, yes, the fact that you are alive is proof. Number 2, and I'll say this again too, Israelis are a little delusional about the security thing. I feel that more than I did before, okay? The idea the fact that you're even alive, right now and breathing is proof. Like, bro, get over yourself. Holy shit. Israelis will sit here on some shit where we live in a fucking battleground. It's constant. It's death. It's Arabs everywhere. And fucking every single Israeli I talked to had this story was yeah, so we knew that Iran was going to attack in 6 hours. So obviously we're running out. We're buying groceries and, we're getting coffee and, we still got an hour or 2 left before the strike. So we're kind of chilling around. I was bro, get the fuck out of here, okay? With your hyper exaggerated bullshit. All right. Yeah, I don't think that the Palestinians get credit for having advanced. I think maybe it was a little bit too harsh on Abbas, on Mahmoud Abbas and on the Palestinian Authority. They definitely have problems, but I think that the state of security in the West Bank and the fact that Palestinians didn't rise up and do Intifada number 3 on October 7th, I think that's a really, really, really big deal that didn't get talked about anywhere near enough. And it's something that I came to appreciate a lot after spending time just being in the area, talking to everybody. Doesn't that have a lot to do with Fatah's cooperation? Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's basically Fatah is a party of the PLO, which is the thing that is in charge of the Palestinian Authority. Yeah. Your entire worldview was shifted due to selection bias. They most likely acted sycophantic for a PR stunt. They saw your cameras and changed their tune. Absolutely retarded. What are you talking about? Number 1, my entire worldview hasn't changed. Okay? I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I said it before. If October 7th happened in the West Bank, I wouldn't even give a fuck. All right? Number 1. Number 2, The settlers are the cancer that is killing your country. Okay, your Ben-Gvirs, your Smotriches, your Smotrich, not Smoltrick. The settlers are the cancer killing your fucking country. The refusal for Israel to like finalize the Palestinian issue and to just keep kicking that can down the road. If your country fails, it's going to be because of that. Like it will be the hubris of Israel to imagine that they could infinitely push that problem aside and never actually deal with it. Of course, your worldview changed. A month ago, you were talking about being scared to go to Paris or London because of the Muslims there, and now look at you today defending the fucking West Bank Palestinians limpheo. You can't make it up. I still feel I wouldn't change what I'm saying, right? The joke is that some of the Muslims that end up going to places like Paris or London are literally hyper fucking radicalized. But I don't know if I would say it's because of Islam. I think that there's a unique connection of like the fact that they are Muslims, but also the fact that they're living in European places that don't really accept them or integrate them well. And then the fact that there's like young people with like anxieties and shit, and it comes together to make this horrible fucking fucked. But even honest to God, and now I see maybe because there are some crazy fucking anti-Arabs in my chat. Even that is like half joking. I don't think that if I mean I've been to fucking London after making like fucking anti-Muslim jokes. I don't think I would die if I was in London or Paris. I'm like half joking when I say this. You are half correct about the settlers, but you're 100% wrong about the Palestinians. About the Palestinians after the 7th of October, we know that 90% of them are Hamas supporters. Yeah, but I mean, like, they probably support Hamas because, like, they feel like the PA isn't doing enough for them. I think that that's like the general feeling. So like the PA just hasn't gotten them any closer to any kind of agreement. Do you think that you being a non-Jew makes it a lot easier to feel safe and comfortable around being around Arabs? I mean, if you go to Israel and you actually talk to the people that live there, a lot of these people felt like every single person around the Gaza Strip, people in Tel Aviv would say that like prior to disengagement and prior to 2005, people would go to the beaches on Gaza. People would go to the beaches, they'd buy things from the markets, they would talk to the Palestinians there. That prior to disengagement, they had like no problem doing this. But as like issues crop up, as you have like your especially your second intifada, when disengagement happens, especially when Hamas takes over in the West Bank, or not the West Bank, I'm sorry, in the Gaza Strip, that things start to get scarier. But there's like a ton of integration, or there was before October 7th. There's a way more integration between Palestinians and Israelis, I think, than people realize, or at least way more than I realized. How visible was religion in Jewish versus Palestinian areas? Religion? I mean, Jews have fucking flags on fucking everything. Holy shit. What was the disengagement? In 2005, the Prime Minister Ariel Sharon decided that he was going to dismantle all of the settlements in the Gaza Strip. There's a line on Wikipedia, some quote by some guy saying that Sharon did it for strategic reasons or some bullshit or whatever. I actually think Sharon's decision was really good. I think Sharon might have actually been a hidden OP Prime Minister. Fuck, my mouth is so dry. Do I want water or Red Bull? Nah, let's get a Red Bull. Hold on. Something that Shlomo Ben Ami said that was very interesting to me was that Ben Ami said that the true tragedy in the last 25 years wasn't Sharon, it wasn't Rabin dying, it was Sharon dying, which I thought was really interesting. It'll come up in our interview. But he basically goes on to argue that like Rabin was not like a peacenik, okay? So Rabin, or Rabin, I've heard his name pronounced both ways. Yitzhak Rabin or Yitzhak Rabin was the guy that was the prime minister when the Oslo Accords get signed, and then he gets assassinated in '95, and people basically end up viewing him. People end up viewing him as like a martyr for peace. Like that's how Rabin is remembered in Israel even, and in the West. He's like, oh yeah, the Oslo Accords, this guy. But I mean, Ben Ami says that like Rabin was not like a huge peacenik. He wasn't like, it's not like he was super dedicated to this. It's just that's where the times were. And he said that chances are, if Rabin wouldn't have been assassinated, if he would have remained prime minister, he would have wound up in the exact same scenario that Sharon was in. He said that the real tragedy was Sharon getting a stroke because Sharon really wanted to disassemble all of the West Bank settlements too. What Sharon wanted to do, but he did have the political support at the time, what Sharon wanted to do is he wanted to say, listen, okay, we fucked up in 67. We are taking apart all the settlements in the Gaza Strip. We're taking apart all the settlements in the West Bank. We're going to secure the fuck out of our borders, and the Palestinians can deal with their own shit. Fuck that. And we have nothing else to do with it anymore. It would get the international community off their back. They wouldn't have to like manage the Palestinians at all. They just have their borders, their security. That's it. And it would have been interesting on a counterfactual. It would have been interesting to see how that world would have played out, where Israel just completely renounces the West Bank, like fuck it, let them deal with it, as opposed to the shit show situation that you have now that's becoming increasingly intractable. Is it enough to remove Hamas and the West Bank settlements after all that's happened? What would peace take at this point? I don't know. That's a whole ass conversation. I don't think that peace can happen right now because I don't think both sides are ready for it. I think things have to be done to I feel like on the broadest level, and my thoughts on this might change over the coming weeks, is like things congeal in my mind. I think for Israelis, I think security is the big thing that needs to be dealt with. And then the messianic hallucinators need to be discarded. So the people obsessed with Judea and Samaria. And then on the Palestinian side, there has to be like a restoration of honor and dignity. There has to be a deal that they feel like they can walk away from, feeling like they got some restitution for, I guess, like the past 75 years of refugeedom that they've essentially been forced to endure. What that looks like exactly, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't even know if Israel considers that in their negotiations, but... Do you think that people told you what they actually think? Do you think they were all honest? Yeah, I think everybody that I spoke to, I think, was honest. But none of the interviews that I did on this trip, none of the interviews that I did were very challenging. I just wanted to talk to people, get their opinion on things. I wasn't there to like push back or ultra debate people. Also because I have no credibility in this region whatsoever. So I didn't want to start having like, I think I went there with like 9 confirmed interviews or less. So I was like building credibility as I was doing these interviews, because I was doing some, and then like how those were going were being communicated to other people to see if I would like continue to do more, because I'm truly coming in here with no reputation. I'm just a crazy YouTuber, and nobody trusts fucking anybody in this region. So Boner said that Barghouti kind of came off as dishonest to him. I mean, every Palestinian leader, we'll get through this as I do my interviews. There are 2 versions of history, and I do believe that Palestinians kind of live in their own world when it comes to their telling of events. But I think it's because of the honor-driven stuff. It has to be a particular way. It has to be the way in their mind that they tell it, because if it was another way, it would be like mind fracturing. It would shatter the collective psyche. I think that's the feeling I have. How many interviews do you end up doing in total? I don't know. I think like 25 or 30. 20 to 30 depends on what counts as interviews or not, yeah. From what you said in the first week, I thought you turned more pro-Zionist. What made you go back to the middle again? I mean, I don't think I'm back in the middle, but I think I feel pretty strongly about all the feelings that I have on everything. I feel like things are pretty solidified, but you know, I don't know. We'll see. I'll go through my emotional adventure though, as we do day by day as we go through the footage. Do you think that this trip is giving you a better insight into the view of the people involved in this conflict? Maybe, but most of my thing was interviewing like diplomats and politicians and negotiators and stuff, so it wasn't as much like a down with the people thing. Isn't the biggest picture fundamental problem that there isn't a negotiating partner for Israel to work with, one that's willing to clamp down on violence while fighting for the best deal for the Palestinians, and of course not be an Iranian proxy? I think that my current feeling is that Abbas is not treated as he should be by the Israelis. I think that Israel should invest more in building up Abbas. I don't think it's acceptable to call him a terrorist and to call him a terrorist supporter, even if he kind of does sometimes, when the man is such a massive improvement from Arafat. Mahmoud Abbas is not perfect. He definitely has issues, and the PA is not perfect and has issues, but it is leaps and bounds ahead of Arafat, who I think that in this trip, my opinion of Abbas climbed, and it borrowed from my opinion of Arafat. I think Arafat was a truly horrible person past the 90s. I just think that he was always going to be a general. He was always going to be a military leader, and he just didn't have politics or diplomacy in him in any way, size, shape, or form. Yeah. Is Abbas relevant in Palestinian society? Do you think he can run a country with 10% support? I think that if Israel supported him more, I think it's possible that he could. And I mean, the PA has brought a lot of security to a lot of West Bank cities. As much as Palestinians might not like it, and as much as Israelis might not like the PA, like the PA has like made strides in security and in the situation on the ground in the West Bank. Like it really has. And Abbas is just such a better negotiating partner. Is so much better than Arafat, despite his flaws. But how would you alleviate fear of Palestinians from Jews? Do you still think Israelis should have to sit back and take a few small terrorist attacks for peace? What can Palestinians do better for peace? I mean, I feel like strong commitments from the Palestinian side against terrorism and stuff like that, which I think Abbas generally does. I'm not aware of him like calling for violence or supporting it like Arafat did in the Second Intifada. Maybe somebody could show me clips. Maybe he has, and I'm not as aware of that. But what are you talking about? The security in the West Bank is from Israeli security forces. The PA forces are totally anemic. I don't know what you're talking about. The IDF does not provide security inside of Palestinian cities in the West Bank. They only go in there if they think that there's a perceived security threat to Israel. What about Abbas' support for pay for slay? Elon Levy brought it up and you didn't have an answer. I mean, I think it's pretty shitty. I don't think it's a good thing at all. But in order to start taking things like that off the table, I think he needs things from Israel. I wouldn't have like I don't have the mind for I have the mind for it. I don't have the facts for what these negotiations would have to look like, or there might be reasons that are contraindicating things I would suggest. But like, I feel like you could get rid of the martyr fund. You could get rid of pay for slay, but Abbas has to be seen by the Palestinians as walking away with something. He can't just be making concessions to Israelis and getting nothing for it. Like if Israel were to make guarantees for like unrestricted access to water and electricity for like the West Bank and Gaza, and then as a result of that, the martyr fund went away or something like that, like maybe that would be possible. But it can't be Abbas just unilaterally, like dropping things. He's already like so unpopular as a leader. He has to be seen as getting something. It's just not. Why can't Abbas offer that? Is he okay with the pay for slay fund being as it is? Because you just can't do that. If you're seen as the leader of your people and you're giving away things, you're making concessions to your occupiers, and you're not getting anything in return, the legitimacy of you is like continually undermined. You're losing more and more and more support from your people because you're just seen as being weak and giving in to the Israelis. You have to be getting something for it. Yeah. How would Israel navigate the propaganda battle when making concessions, when Al Jazeera has such a hold on that region? How will the gains not be framed as victory of violence? Maybe it can be victory of violence. Like, fuck it. What Israel has to recognize is that there is no way to ever win the propaganda war against Palestinians. You can't do it. It is an impossible thing to do. Hamas and pillage and kill on October 7th, and people don't care that much. You cannot. You can't win that. That situation has to be resolved, and it has to be resolved through diplomacy. No amount of missiles you're not going to shoot your way out of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict if you're Israel. You have to resolve that conflict. It doesn't matter how good your arguments are. I think they are good. It doesn't matter how logical or rational or legal your arguments are. I think they are logical. I think they're rational. I think they're reasonable. At the end of the day, people are just going to see people living in undignified conditions. They're going to see the amount of deaths that are happening on the Gazan side, on the West Bank side, and they're going to see like the relative dispossession of Palestinians versus Israelis, and nobody's going to accept it. You just can't. It would take a sociopath to walk through parts of that country and look at both sides and go like, yeah, I definitely see that Israel's on the right. You can't. It's just not possible, even if the facts are all on your side. So I think that Israel has to resolve that issue. It just has to. Where was this? Israel invests so much in their messaging. They literally have a name for it, Hasbara. Hasbara is the biggest fucking joke in the history of all of fucking mankind. Israel's foreign communication is fucking dog shit. I don't know if they think that they're above it or they're better than it or if they've just given up on it. But the idea that Israel has some like well-oiled propaganda machine is that, I think, in my mind, I think that is like immediately the discrediting thing. Like if somebody even suggests that, then I know that you have absolutely no concept of what that country struggles with in terms of messaging and communication and how the international community views them. Israeli propaganda is a fucking joke. They cannot do it. I don't know why, but Israel has lost the ability to communicate with the West sometime after 2005, I guess, or sometime after the year 2000, maybe. I knew this. I knew the facts for this, but I just didn't have like the story, the narrative, I guess. If you want to look at propaganda and you want to look at who does propaganda well, I think you're looking at countries like Russia, China, and then like Iran and Qatar. I think these are people that are making huge investments in foreign propaganda that are paying dividends, I think, in terms of how they invest and in terms of the results that they see. Just the idea that like Jews are running like all this shit. It's like, okay, well, look at the schools. Where are all of your pro-Jewish people? They don't exist, right? Like, look at all of your protests. Look at all of the media and the propaganda. I think that that one emailer that emailed me a couple months ago brought up such a good point too. It looked like for a little bit that that Jews were like super coming down hard on conservatives and shit, but it wasn't Jews and it wasn't pro-Jewish people. It was just people who were opposed to white supremacy, which is like all of the woke crowd, all of like the far left, the Marxists, the socialists, whatever the fuck. For a while, it looked like, oh, wow, they're calling everybody a Nazi. Wow, must be like Jewish propaganda. No, it's just far left woke shit. The reason why they call them a Nazi is because they think they're white supremacists. And now you can see that completely turned on its head today because all of those same woke people that all of the far right assumed were being controlled by Jews are now calling Jews Nazis. It's just, yeah. But that was one of the interviews, one of the recordings I'll have. The story behind it and everything is funny, but it's so funny. I'm sitting around this table with like 10 different Jewish people who are all like flustered, trying to figure out like how do we communicate our goals to the West? Like, why does nobody in the West understand us? Like, blah blah blah. And it's just funny the difference between that and like Fuentes will say shit like, yeah, the Jews are running all the media, blah blah blah. But I can think of like 3 different huge examples off the top of my head where it's like, yeah, it's just not even close. Yeah. At Destiny, the Palestinian Authority currently is in a fiscal decline. How could you ever think they are good enough to govern? It seems to me you're picking the best out of a bad bunch, which will fuck Jews over in the end since they permit terrorism regardless. Hit Jules, not kids. Listen, bro, you can think what you want. Your country right now, if you are indeed a Jewish Zionist person, is on a path towards destruction. If you don't think you can work with the PA, if you don't think you can work with any other organizations on the ground, if you think the Palestinians are violent or whatever, that's fine. Your country will be forfeit and you will lose it and it will all die. Good luck. And that would be the fault of Hamas, the PA and Western leftists, not Israelis' fault. Cool. And there's a lot of people at the gates of heaven, on their bicycles saying that they had the right of way. I mean, the problem is that the Jews of today are not built like the Jews in the 30s and 40s. Like, you truly are mind fucked. You truly are fucking retarded. And I think it's sad that when you read where Jews came from, your Herzls, your Ben Gurions, your Moshe Dayans, like they were visionary people that wielded diplomacy, foreign communication, military might and prowess and strategy and cunning. Like, they wielded all of these weapons so effectively in such a sophisticated multi-pronged strategy. But the Jews of today are your Smotrich and your Ben Gvir defenders who think that you can just shoot your way out of any fucking problem. And you will be crushed by the Arab armies of the Middle East. You don't have the people for it. You don't have the support from the West for it. You don't have the support from the populations for it. Even your own population is turning against you. Like, I'm sorry, but the right wing, the military Jews of today are just so much dumber than the Jews that ran your country 80 years ago. It's actually fucking pathetic. But I don't give a fuck. It's not my country. Good luck. Okay.